Hi, Kieran here again. I thought I'd try my hand at film reviewing today. Recently I watched the film Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. It's a recent film. I think it's a American-German production, but it comes over like a Hollywood film pretty much. And My reaction is I kind of thought it was okay. I'd give it like a 5 out of 10. Where if 10 is like the kind of best films that I've seen and 1 is the worst films that I've seen, then I'd give it a 5, somewhere in the middle of the films that I've seen in my life. To very briefly summarize what it's about, I will be doing spoilers here, so don't watch this if you don't want to know what happens in the film. It's based on the German fairy tale, but it's a kind of it's a total action film, and they're fighting witches, and it's got a kind of steampunk kind of element, this kind of anachronistic stuff like machine guns going around, even though it's supposed to be medieval Germany. Okay, so I thought it was generally watchable. I think I haven't actually seen a full review. I think I've sort of heard that it was some like reviewers really hated it. They thought it was like kind of really bad film, but I definitely didn't see it as a really bad film. Took a little while to get into it, but certainly for the last sort of hour I was kind of pretty engaged. I was definitely not going to sort of stop watching it, and I thought it was fairly exciting, amusing, and kind of kept me interested. One of the problems with it was actually the anachronistic stuff. There was also anachronistic kind of dialogue. I think quite early on, the female lead calls a bunch of townspeople hicks or something. It's like usually in these medieval things they throw in a little bit of oldie language, but unfortunately in this one they sort of didn't, which I found slightly jarring, but I did get into it. I did get used to it reasonably quickly. Certainly by about half hour into the film I wasn't thinking about that sort of thing. Also they had anachronistic objects. They had the kind of machine guns and a record player, and again that sort of I think pushed me away from being involved in the story a little bit at the beginning, because I just kind of was struggling to sort of place where this was supposed to be set. Though I entirely get what they were trying to do. It wasn't a serious film. Wasn't trying to be a serious film. I thought the film kind of fell down as well in that it just didn't. It's a bit cruel to say this, but the writer just didn't have any much sort of inspiration to do new things. It wasn't hilariously funny. There wasn't really much in it that I hadn't sort of seen before to some degree somewhere else. So it just wasn't super memorable or super funny or super exciting. There was a specific problem with the film for me, that it was edited quite brutally. I think they seem to. It was very high density of action, like fast takes, people punching each other, which isn't very exciting. I mean, after a while, it kind of devalues it. If people, I mean, there must be about 10 people getting punched straight out in the face in this film and falling on the ground with like bleeding faces. Kind of devalues it if that's happening a lot and then they're getting up again. There were lots of opportunities for suspense in the film. Quite notably, in the first scene, you see the Hansel and Gretel as children going to the witch's house, and they're really not in there 5 seconds when the fight breaks out with a witch, pretty much, with very fast takes and stuff. And surely they should have had a little bit of dialogue. Maybe it would have been really suspenseful. I mean, thinking of like Quentin Tarantino, he's like a master of violence, but this film's got loads of talking in between where we don't know what's going to happen next, and it really adds to the tension. and excitement if you can be a little bit more sparing with the action. In terms of kind of the morality of it, I did have a little bit of a problem that it ended up, even though it isn't an entirely American film, it ended up, at least the English version, ended up quite American-centric in terms of the accents. Like the two main characters both have American accents, and kind of the middling people kind of have European accents, and the witches, to the extent that they speak, you hear them, I think, having kind of European accents, which is what we get in a lot of films. I mean, it's a German legend. I mean, why can't Hansel and Gretel be Germans? It's like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Why can't he be actually from the place he's supposed to be from? Why does he have to be American? I mean, I think this adds to kind of xenophobia about Eastern Europeans and foreigners generally. We even get it that the lead witch, who transforms from like a beautiful woman into an ugly hag, kind of did a bit more of a kind of American accent when she was looking beautiful. When she turned into the hag, she was really sounded a lot more European. What's that all about? In terms of the violence generally, I suppose, I mean, I do have a kind of opinion against violent films, though I quite enjoy them. This was a very violent film, lots of problems and arguments being solved by punching people in the face. That's not good. But it was at least quite comic book, so it probably wouldn't inspire violence like a film like Goodfellas might do, which is like a kind of big advert for a life of crime, really. Also, it's not really sick like the kind of Saw films or whatever, where it might drive a sicko over the edge watching this, or inspire someone to be a bit more sick if they watch this when they're young. I don't know if there's any evidence that happens, but it's something I do slightly worry about. So it was generally comic book violence. They were fighting witches, so it wasn't quite as bad as like a war film with this normal people fighting each other, and that's supposed to be good or whatever. Yeah, in terms of, I did think about sexism in it, because obviously all the enemies are female, but I think they kind of maybe were aware of that, and they have quite a lot of good characters. They have the good witches, and kind of there are positive female characters and empowered females, especially considering it's supposed to be set in medieval times in some kind of violent society. The women do kind of hold their own. In fact, the women are the most powerful people, good or evil, in it. The thing was a little bit sexist maybe is that the kind of there's more kind of beautyism when it came to the women. Most of the men were kind of neither beautiful nor ugly, whereas the good women were all beautiful women, and all the ugly, the old hags were all evil. So I suppose that was, I mean, that's beautyism in itself is a real problem in films as well. So that was a problem. It also seemed to weigh more heavily on the women for some reason. But anyway, those are my thoughts, and I hope you found that interesting. All the best.